to the webinar about the image-based testing. And this is one of the main features that got introduced by Squish 6.4, or this is an improvement of the existing feature. And the image-based testing was already available in Squish 6.3, where it still was relying on exact representation of the searched images on the screen. And 6.4 goes beyond that and allows you to search in a more flexible manner. And this is something that which is first Jarek, who's one of our developers working on that feature, and me, Harry, one of the two founders of RugLogic, will demonstrate to you in the next 20 or 30 minutes. You will be able to answer or ask questions at any time through the questions tab of the GoToWebinar software. We'll try to answer the questions during the presentation, but especially at the end, we'll have sufficient time to go through all the questions asked. Okay, but this is the point where I would ask Jarek to start with your live demonstration.
Okay, hi. So I will be now demonstrating the basic image lookup. I will start with basic image lookup testing, and then we will go on with more advanced features. So I will create a new test suite and add an address book application. It's an application that comes as an example with Squish installation. And I will record a new test case on it. So firstly, I will use the regular object lookup that is already in Squish for a long time. I will click the icon for a new address book and to add a new entry. I will cancel it now. And then I will do the same using the image-based approach. So I'll select the image of interest, firstly here, and I give it a proper name. And then again. And now I see already the image I added here, so I could potentially reuse it, but I can want to add a new image now. And give it a more descriptive name. And again, I stop the recording. And we see two different ways of accessing those two buttons. So there is the regular object name way that requires Squish to know things about the internals of the application and have knowledge about at least the toolkit that it uses, and be compatible with the toolkit. And here we see the image based, where basically only the visual of the button is important, and it can be created using any technology.
And you could even show the images as they are stored inside.
Yes. So the search images can be browsed here on the bottom left of the Squish IDE that are available. I will now remove the object-based instructions, and I will demonstrate that it simply replace. Yes, and it does. Oh.
I guess it kind of counts. It's just about results. We don't have any results now, so that doesn't matter.
Yes. So this is the functionality that was available in Squish 6.3 already, but it only works if the image is an exact match But anytime that any change happens on the application side, and there can be many reasons for that to be, this will obviously fail. And Squish 6.3 didn't offer much to address that problem. So now in Squish 6.4, we have support for scaled image search and tolerance search. I will now use the Qt library feature in order to simulate the different DPI, for example, of the application.
Yeah. So there
normally
can be
you would expect. Normally,
I was just going to say that there can be many. Yeah. I was going to say there can be many reasons why the application looks different. So this is now a fake way to scale the application, but normally it would be a different screen with a different resolution, different font settings, different color themes, and so on. Don't forget about the maximum timeout value. Otherwise, you're going to wait for 20 seconds there.
So normally the Squish would wait for 20 seconds per default before reporting an error, wait for the image, for the proper image to appear. We are now reducing it to 2 seconds just to make the presentation shorter. And now on replaying that test, after 2 seconds of wait, so almost immediately, we get the image not found dialog, which is also Squish 6.4 edition that helps to diagnose and deal with problems with image search. So the options it gives us is to update the image in case the application was simply updated and the image has changed, or add a new image next to this image and create a group of images that will be used from now on. This is mostly useful if you want to test also a different if the image is different on different platforms or on different rendering styles, etc. Where the image is not just scaled or slightly different, but really completely different. And it does happen also fairly often. But what I will be doing right now is to adjust the search parameters. Yes. And as you can see on the right here, that it added a bit tolerance because the scaling of the image is almost always done slightly different. So there need to be at least some tolerance for differences. And it adjusted the scale factors from default 100% to 100 to 154. And indeed, it shows that it has found with those settings the proper icon. I can adjust the threshold manually, of course, if I wish. But as we can see, if I increase the threshold, then nothing gets found. So we see that this is the optimal threshold for now. And if I decrease it back again, and now I set the settings as defaults. And apparently the next icon requires even more tolerance, so I will repeat that. And if you pay attention to the number, it was actually 99.8 in the previous case. Now it's even lower, so it asks again about adjusting the tolerance value. And I can also accept it, since the icon is the proper one. And the test continues. And now the values have been adjusted, and I can see them on the test suite settings editor and the image search tab. We can see the current settings. And we can obviously also adjust them manually if we so please. And with those new settings, the test should replay without any further interaction. And it does.
And it will also, of course, replay if you unset the changed size of the application, meaning we have a test now that will replay on multiple platforms. And that's, of course, one of our goals is to not have a specific set of tests for each platform, but have one that works in a portable manner.
Yes, so if I disable the functionality, it will replay as well. But as you've seen, I had to adjusted multiple times for multiple icons, potentially for every single item in the even larger test suite. So that would be quite labor intensive to do it this way. So if I break the search again and I disable the new settings that were applied to make it fail again, and now we see the image not found, except now I can click attempt to fix image search errors automatically, and this will basically do what I did manually with use of the dialogues completely automatically for every next search. And it does. It takes a moment, but it does so, and the parameters computed should be exactly the same. Oh, they're even in this mode, it even computed slightly lower maximal size, but it still replays. Yes.
And at the bottom, you previously saw that it gave information on the way it relaxed the search. So you keep being informed about what happens. But now that the parameters have been tuned, this is not necessary anymore. So the test has become gained.
Yes. So the automatic mode logs the changes that were done. Yes. So next thing I would like to show is firstly, if I start the application in the regular way, I can also capture an image just in order to reuse it later on. So I will capture now the drag handle of the toolbar, and I will the name of it was handle. I will modify the test script manually, and instead of mouse click, we will use the highlight object squish API, which is useful for both debugging and presenting the results of the image lookup. Basically, it highlights for a short while the found position of the image. Oh, the highlighter is not visible.
Oh yeah, maybe it's it doesn't have any real dimension, so maybe you take one of the other buttons after all.
Well, it should have. I think.
Oh yeah, all right.
That might be a problem with my setup here. Ah, no, that button is not to be found yet. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, the highlight object function also works with regular objects, by the way. So it's not just the images that are found. Which yeah.
Now it's okay. But what I wanted to demonstrate is the groups and why are they useful. So if I use then handle again for mouse clicking, but now I will add additional parameter for the application to change the style in which it is rendered. And the application should look, yes, very different. And the handles, for example, are significantly different. So if I try to replay that, it will fail because obviously oh, sorry, I had to change it in here as well. In order for the replay to fail. Oh, there's Oh, that shouldn't have happened.
Maybe
yes, because we still have some tolerance enabled,
okay.
so maybe
Okay.
that's the reason. That maybe it does actually find something.
Yeah.
I will disable it now. Yes. So now I will add a new image. I will select the other style of the handle. Obviously, the clicking of the handle alone doesn't produce any result, but now we can see that the handle image was actually converted into a folder that contains both of them, but the folder itself can also be used as a group of the images, so that we can use multiple visuals for the same component. And now the test will obviously replay fine.
Yep.
And finally, I would also like to show what happens if the test does indeed fail. So I can use the image that is failing, will be failing in this configuration because it's the icon is not active. And I will let it fail this time. So if in here I have a help of IDE which can help me with the dialogue and automatic adjustment of the parameters, but if the test suite is run via command line, for example, without IDE's help, maybe via Jenkins plugin or other automation, obviously this is not possible. So what can be done is we can enable a logging of the screenshots on errors here. And when that is enabled and the test suite and the image lookup fails, then we get an error message in the report. And by right-clicking on that report and going for image search preview, we go back to this dialog where we can see also the proper parameters computed, so we can apply them for our test suite. So we can immediately fix the test suite this way as well. That was actually executed remotely, and we just imported the test results into the IDE. So that's about it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Jarek, for the demo. Really quick run through. We are open for questions now. As I said, you can type them into the questions tab. Or maybe let me raise one question that has come up before. What if the control shows up multiple times, Jarek? Can you answer that question?
Yes. So maybe I can demonstrate it by recording a new test. I hope it will work. Probably not in this configuration. Sorry. Then I will skip that idea. We can just add another parameter here, which basically says which occurrence on the desktop. Is it the first one or the second one or even higher one? But we can only look for one occurrence. So currently we do not support looking for many occurrences at the same time. But we can definitely choose the particular one we are interested in at the moment.
Okay, so there's one question. Will the image not found dialog appear if the test is executed with Squish Runner instead of the IDE?
With Squish Runner is it meant by command line or some other way outside of the IDE,
so.
right?
I guess so, yes.
No, it will not appear because it is a part of the IDE. So
and
it cannot possibly occur because the Squish Runner does not actually show any windows.
Okay, and what will the behavior be? I guess that's what the question is.
The behavior will be, as I mentioned before, it will just report an error. Since it has no way of communicating with the user, it will just report an error, which we can then import into IDE, which then the test report we can import into IDE and fix the way I described before. But the whole fixing helper is embedded into IDE and cannot work without it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there's a question from somebody who is developing for an ARM-based IoT device that has a user interface that is based on the GTK graphical toolkit. The question is whether Squish can help directly in the device or whether they will be restricted to the image-based testing only. Yeah, so the person also asked about VNC, and this is indeed an option. If there's a device that you don't have any access to, so the whole graphics stack is either proprietary or uses a toolkit that is not supported by Squish, you can indeed solely work on the images there. Maybe you have a simulator that displays the screen content on your desktop system. That would be a way to test it. And indeed, one way would be a VNC connection to that. So yeah, feel free to get in contact with us to try that out. It's definitely doable in that way. It's just that the tool will not recognize the distinct elements. But maybe one.
As far as I know, we do not have any particular support for GTK toolkit.
Right, that's what I mean. No, that's why I meant the image-based search will come to rescue there. And to give you an outlook on the next release, we are working on the support for optical character recognition, so OCR. And with the help of that, you'll also be able to read out text or locate elements based on their text on the screen. So this will again help you with cases where a control is not recognized by the testing tool. So it's a question, I like the screenshot on error functionality. Can a screenshot be taken by a test as well? Yeah, that's true. That's a useful feature for debugging, and indeed there are ways to turn this on. Jarek, I guess you can show that in the test suite settings.
Yes.
The logging.
Actually, we can log an error screenshot both on test script error, which is basically a script error, or on any of both pass and fail results logged in during the test.
Yeah. So if you have any kind of so if you have any verification, turn on the setting and you'll get the logging. The pass logging is there in case you want a history of both successful and failing comparisons. There's this UI for that purpose, but there's also a script statement that you can maybe shortly show where you can turn on this feature.
Before that, just to make the explanation complete, I wanted to mention that you can also uncheck this box, and that will basically disable the image not found dialog and make the tests run using the IDE fail exactly the same as they would run run directly from the runner without any user interaction. But all of these properties are also accessible through the test settings objects from the script directly. So the screenshot ones are probably
not screenshot and fails. Okay.
For example, this one, but even the defaults for the image search are also accessible here. So I could also do this.
Yeah. And since we still have some minutes left, we can also maybe explain what the wait for image function does. It waits the specified time for an object or image to appear on the screen, and if it's successful, it will actually return a rectangle object, and maybe you can write 2 or 3 script lines to demonstrate that. So instead of clicking on a found image right away, you may as well store the result of the image search in a variable and pass this rectangle to mouse click, or do your own manipulations on that, as the rectangle has a X and Y position on the screen, and maybe you can even put a breakpoint there. Yeah. There's an R too much. Oh, yeah.
Wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, so we'll put a breakpoint before the click, run the test.
So for now it will fail because again I resetted the parameters.
Yeah. And so we have to do another round to make this work. But this will show you that the scripting possibility is there as well in case you want to do your own geometric manipulations, and you see the screen rectangle has a width and height. So if you are not happy with the way it clicks right into the middle, you may as well calculate a different position somewhere in 1/4 of the object, for example. Okay, there is another question. Could you please tell me if there are multiple test cases and we want to see graphical test results like TestNG? Is that possible, or should we use any plugin or write code for that? Let me reread that one. Yeah, the graphical results, there is currently the HTML report, but at this moment I should mention that we are working on a new component that stores test results over longer periods of time and for multiple text executions that happened in parallel. So there will be even a web interface that allows you to browse those. And the product likely going to be called Squish Central is already available to customers who want to do some beta testing. So this is something that sits on top of Squish and allows you to do some sophisticated analysis, but I guess it's a bit out of scope for this webinar about the image-based testing. But other than that, I think we're done with the features that we wanted to show. We remain open for questions, so we'll stick around in the line for a few more minutes, and otherwise, please send us an email. There's last question we should answer. Instead of capturing images by selecting an area on the screen, can we specify the expected file by just loading the original PNG file that we know was used to create the icon? We can answer that with yes. The images are really stored in their original format on disk as well, so you can just browse to the directory that you see here, and Jarek is apparently going to open that in the operating system explorer. So you see there's a plain old PNG file stored on the hard disk, and that's where you could place your images at. And second part of the question is about transparency. It's a good question. Squish will ignore the transparent areas, as you say so, and that means you can filter out backgrounds by setting the alpha transparency of the pixels you want to ignore. Okay, but let's stay with below 30 minutes. We are done then, and as I said, if you have further questions, just drop us an email at squish@froglogic.com. Thanks to everyone, including Jarek.
Okay, thank you too.